I've always been in the care industry or one way or another. Most recently, for about 15 years, I was in pediatrics. And I did have an incident a few years ago with my own father, and he was trying to navigate these waters. And while I was very well versed in pediatrics, I wasn't as well versed in senior care, what was needed. And I'll be honest with you, I relied on a very respectable hospital in our area to kind of guide us as what next steps were. And they failed. They failed my family. They failed my father terribly. And so immediately I started by going out into the ALFs, personally going into them, doing the deeper dive, looking at their care and violation history, meeting with the executive directors, meeting with my sales directors, talking to the staff to better understand their community, their ALF, and the people that they wanted to serve and what was a good client for them. All operators need to be truly, truly honest with themselves and honest with their staff, not to accept a patient that they don't have room for.
Hello, friend. Welcome. I'm your host, Carlene Cadet Francois from Florida Assisted Living Consulting. We help busy professionals convert buildings into thriving assisted living and group homes throughout the state of Florida. We are also the organizers behind the annual Assisted Living Caregivers Conference. The next one is January 29th and 30th, 2027 at the Palm Beach Convention Center. Click the link in the description to learn more. We are also organizers of communities. Click the link in the descriptions for information on the Thriving Circle community. Today, I am here with an amazing guest, and she was one of our panelists at the conference we just had January that just passed. I am here with my amazing guest, Nickie DiFede. Nickie DiFede is the owner of CarePatrol Broward in Miami-Dade, where she helps families navigate independent living, assisted living, memory care, in-home care with compassion and clarity. That clarity is everything. A South Florida native, Nickie is known for her hands-on approach and deep knowledge of the local senior living landscape. She is a certified senior advisor, a certified dementia practitioner, and a strong advocate for elder adults through her leadership in community and nonprofit initiatives. Nickie, welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Carlene. I'm excited to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So as you stated, I am the owner of CarePatrol of Broward and Miami-Dade. Love what I do, passionate about what I do. And I tell people it's more than just placement, because oftentimes we are just bundled in with we do placement. No. Anyone who talks to me know that it's so much more than that. We are very hands-on, boots on the ground. I do what I say what I do. I am in my community, in my ALFs, whether they are large or small, and really representing and advocating for both my older adults who need placement and they need a safe place to live, but also I'm a strong marketing arm for the smaller ALFs and even some of the larger ones to really focus on and market what their community has to offer.
I love that. Just the other day, I want to say maybe a week and a half ago, someone reached out and commented on our channel looking for an ALF. And for someone listening to you using words like placement, senior professional, what does that really mean? Whether they're a family member or they're a new person who just opened an assisted living, what do you do in layman's term? What those terms that we're using, what do they stand for?
So for me personally, in my business, what I do is I always tell people I'm a solution person. Someone calls me up, usually they're in crisis, they're in a hospital or a rehab, and they need to know what are the next steps. This is not a one-size-fits-all for everyone. So not every next right step would be going into an assisted living community. It might need long-term Medicaid to be able to afford assisted living. They might need a really great in-home care, or they might need to understand just the difference between what a nursing home is and assisted living. So what I do is I provide expert advice on navigating the waters. What are we looking at? What are our choices? And then really combining the client's care needs, social needs, and then financial needs to find what avenue is going to best serve that older adult.
I love that. And then for me, coming from someone who has managed an ALF, when someone like you come around, you are a resource. I remember when I had just gotten into the business, my first real resource in the senior care industry was a placement professional. She came with a client. Mom was at a larger assisted living, but she wasn't doing well. She has declined drastically, and both mom and dad was there, and it was a trial. So it was my first senior care interaction. So after after she left, touring the client, showing the place and asking me all types of questions and helping me navigate, the whole atmosphere of this potential client. And after she left, I reached out to her because there were so much other things I realized I didn't know. Even if you're watching this and you're not at a point where you have an assisted living yet, start reaching out to Nickie because she will help you to understand certain things families look for that you may not have been aware of. So with all of that said, I know most people who are in the senior care industry, they got in it because they clearly love what they do. And I can see your heart in this. What led you to be this senior care expert placement professional that you are today?
Well, thank you. I've always been in the care industry or one way or another. Most recently, for about 15 years, I was in pediatrics. And I did have an incident a few years ago with my own father, and he was trying to navigate these waters. And while I was very well versed in pediatrics, I wasn't as well versed in senior care, what was needed. And I'll be honest with you, I relied on a very respectable hospital in our area to kind of guide us as what next steps were. And they failed. They failed my family. They failed my father terribly. The job that I had, I was kind of chained to a desk and couldn't really even visit my dad the way I wanted to. He ended up in hospice. And I just realized that, number one, there has to be a better way. And number two, for myself, I can't continue living like this where I can't even grieve or understand a situation because I'm working so much. So I found CarePatrol. It's a franchise over 200 locations nationwide, which is great. And I realized that their values, their ethics aligned perfectly with what I wanted to do. And this was an industry that I needed to learn more. I needed to learn more, not only from my family. I mean, my father has passed away now 5 years ago. But
sorry.
I needed to know this for my family and for my community. Like you said in the beginning, I'm born and raised in Miami. I've been in Broward County for 30 years now. And I am that person that people come to for solutions. And this is one time in my life that I didn't have a solution. And I said never again. So I jumped in head, feet first. I mean, arms, limb, everything. Like I was going to know this industry back, forward, left. I was going to do my work. And so immediately I started by going out into the ALFs, personally going into them, doing the deeper dive, looking at their care and violation history, meeting with the executive directors, meeting with my sales directors, talking to the staff to better understand their community, their ALF, and the people that they wanted to serve and what was a good client for them. And in doing so, I have this huge network now of just senior professionals, so that if someone calls me up and maybe they just need a reliable mover, maybe they need an elder law attorney, they need someone they can trust, my network of people I know are trusted professionals. And so I can say with 100% certainty here's someone that's going to be able to help you. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's an elder law attorney. I have my trusted elder law attorneys or movers so that our older adults are not taken advantage of and our families aren't taken advantage of during their most vulnerable time, because this is what happens, is that it's a crisis. Decisions need to be made in 24 hours. I've had phone calls from the hospital. Nickie, my mom needs to leave in 2 hours. I need a place now. Okay, take a breath. I got you. Meet me here. So I know the communities that have availability, what's going to be a good solution for the family based on their needs, and being able to take action within hours is really helpful to our families that need that.
Absolutely. And I get some of these calls sometimes where typically a family member don't even know that they need assisted living until mom fell and she's at the hospital. And you talk about being able to accept a new client as the facility operator in a very short time notice. And you also talk about people that are fit for a certain setting versus the other. From your perspective, when you talk about who is fit for where, what should operators know? And then the other side of this is what should family members know, like limitations. For example, you have different settings that you help with, independent living versus assisted living versus memory care and versus in-home option. And if you can quickly touch on these 3 or 4 different settings and what would be a good fit and what should operators and family members know so that everyone is on the same page to know at least these are the things that you're looking for.
Yeah, let's talk about about assisted living first, and that's a great question. I think that all operators need to be truly, truly honest with themselves and honest with their staff, not to accept a patient that they don't have room for. Just a quick example, I had a bariatric patient in a bariatric wheelchair, and before he reached me, he was dealing with another agency that had him move 3 times in 7 days because of the fact that now the ALF owner knew that was a bariatric patient, knew that the wheelchair was wider, but did not have the capacity in their doorways to accommodate that. They should have been honest and truthful and not be guided by the fact that this is a new client and they were desperate for a client. So being truthful also with that client. So forget about the fact that the doorways weren't wide enough for his wheelchair. The staff wasn't able to accommodate someone of his weight. That was clearly a two-person assist. So if you have 3 residents at your home, 1 person who's unable to assist with his care needs, that should have been known. That should have been known, and that should have been addressed by the owner of the ALF not to accept that client. So I think being really honest. Now me, when I do my investigation, I would ask those questions. You know, and even when I tour, there's over 200 places in ALFs, licensed ALFs in Broward. It's one of the things I look for. I look at, you know, the size of the doorways, the staff. Are there any male staff? What can they truly accommodate so that we can have the right fit the first time? Moving an older adult 3 times in 7 days is unacceptable.
It's bad.
Yeah, that's not my goal.
Terrible.
Yeah, my goal is to find the right fit. When I go out and I do personal assessments, if it's independent living or even supportive living, what does that look like? What can the person do for themselves? And let's really be honest and ask, how do you get your food? What resources do you have? Again, I'm not just going to move someone because it's a financial gain for me. I am dealing with adults here. I'm dealing with the most vulnerable adults, and I need to do what's right by them. So being truthful with the services that are offered, whether it be IL, AL, or memory care, I tell people all the time, not every person who has dementia needs memory care. That you need to understand what memory care looks like. You also need to be honest with the operators if the person's an elopement risk. I am doing no service to someone to try to move them into a location if they're an elopement risk and say the house is on a busy street or they are not set up for someone who likes to wander. Again, I can't sleep at night knowing that I've done something like that. So it's really being in great communication with the operators of the ALFs to understand what their capabilities are, both operational, what does their building look like, and then also staff. So what does your staff look like to make sure that it's going to be the right fit the first time and not have to move them again.
I absolutely love that because I preach so much. It's like I feel like people see me on YouTube or on social media and they're like, why is she always telling us what to do? Okay, you heard from Nickie why, for example, practically, if you have a gate, is it true that you're more likely to bring this client to someone who has a gate and has everything else together versus someone who don't have a gate but then have everything else together if this person is known to elope or is at high elopement risk? Alarm doors, making sure that you have a diverse staff. All of these things are so important because sometimes choosing between one ALF or the other is just one small detail, and it could be that gate.
Absolutely. It could be the gate. Yeah. It could be the way that they're set up for activities. That's a huge one in the smaller ALFs. One of the things that towards most of my clients when it comes to the smaller ALFs, I'll just touch on this real quickly, is the cleanliness of the house and clutter. So you can be clean, but then I see in the corner you have all your paperwork stacked up. In the eyes of my clients that I'm touring with, that's dirty. Your house might not be dirty, but it's the clutter, right? So having a clutter-free, clean house, any repairs that need to be made are made. And then also, what does your home look like as far as safety measures? Are there alarms on the doors? And sometimes I do have, even the individual doors have alarms because, as you know, the rule in Florida, and this is something that's surprising to a lot of people, is you do not have to have someone awake at night unless you have more than 16 residents. When I'm touring with a client, I let them know. They might ask a question, what happens if mom gets up at night? Great question. How is the ALF handling that? So what are your measures if someone gets up at night? How are you going to know? How are you handling it? And that's something that from a client's perspective, they want to know. Also having friendly staff and being honest about who your staff is and if they only speak a certain language, just let me know. We are in a rich, culturally diverse part of Florida, and I love it. And that's some of the best thing that we have is that we're so culturally diverse. A lot of my clients have really specific requests. I just had a client yesterday. Nickie, my grandma's turned 100. She only speaks Creole. Can you find me a house that has Creole speaking caretakers? 100%. So those are the kind of notes that I take. What is the background of the caretakers? What is the language that's spoken? Because this is a comfortability factor with my clients. And when I say clients, it's not only the older adult that I'm trying to look for a place for, it's the family members as well. Because this is a family decision. It's not made entirely by one person or by that older adult. So having a house that's staffed appropriately, and then please have activities for your clients, please. Now, I understand that it's a smaller residential care home, and sometimes that's not always possible, but doing something, I can tell you guys all this, anyone that owns a residential care home, please hear me out. Contact your local hospice, contact your local home health, contact your in-home care agencies. They will come and do free activities with your residents. Especially the hospice companies, they will do a free activity. So by creating those broadening your own network and creating those contacts, you can have people come in with different activities. They're enrichment to your residents, and that's important. The number one reason that people choose, or one of the number one reasons people may choose a larger ALF as opposed to a small residential, is a lack of activity going on in the home. Now, I do understand that residential ALFs oftentimes take care of higher acuity cases, right? That's one of the reasons I advocate for the smaller homes. But there are those people who will not thrive in a larger community, but they still need activities. So doing something, having board games, dominoes table, something that shows that there's activities going on is a real bonus and a real great way to show that you are not only providing care, you're providing enrichment, and you're providing joy of life. This is just another chapter in an older adult's life, and it shouldn't be bed to recliner. It really should be that we have some type of activities going on. Even if it's getting them in for a small walk around the neighborhood, that's one of the things I noticed with my ALFs is what's in the neighborhood, what could they do? Fresh air is super important, and having an engaging outdoor area, whether that be in the front of your house or the back of your house, some area where I can say, look, we can bring them out in a chair, they can sit, enjoy, get a bird feeder, inexpensive, go to Home Depot, $10. But those things matter. When you point out the little things, they matter when I'm doing those tours.
Absolutely. And thank you for covering that, because I think they can hear me say so much. But then another component is having a very well lit home. It should not be dark. You do have an activity calendar, use it. And then your local churches too. We know that there are level 2 background that needs to be done when someone is interacting with your clients. But I have been in contact with local churches that are willing to come and do activities with you and your seniors. And even having a staff that is awake, even as a smaller setting. When I managed, it was required that my staff was awake, and I didn't have 16 residents. That's why your policy is making sure that you train your staff, making sure education is a huge one, being able to communicate with your staff. With all of that said, covering the activities in the smaller settings, very, very important. I mean, I've come across smaller ALFs that are dark. There's fire safety issues all over the place. It's just not gonna go. And in your opinion, touring so many larger and smaller ALFs, what other advice would you give to someone who is a smaller setting?
When doing tours, two things really matter. Number one, besides the other aspects that we talked about, number one is just being available to tour. And as an owner, if you can make yourself available for a tour, that's always a benefit. The reason I'm saying that is because from my perspective, if I'm bringing a client to you, 100% they meet the criteria for what you can handle as far as care. Secondly, financially, they're able to afford your community because I already know what your prices are. So I'm bringing you a client that's ready to move in. So as an owner, meeting me out there for the tour so that it's not your staff they're giving the tour, it's you as the owner representing, here I am as the owner, this is my great staff, but if if I'm being held responsible for this home, you can come to me. Here's my information. So that's really important, is to be available as an owner. Also being able to tour anytime, day or night. My best ALFs will tell me, Nickie, you can come and knock on the door at any time. I tell that to my clients, and I let them know, because this is a ALF that has nothing to hide. We knock on the door, I'm not waiting 15 minutes to be let inside. That's a big red flag if I'm waiting 15 minutes. The second thing is, it is so important that staff is friendly and acknowledging people on that tour. Carlene, I can't tell you how many times we walked into a home when we're touring it, the staff doesn't pick up their head, the staff doesn't say hi. The perception is, well, they don't really care. A smile's free. It's free. It's a free marketing tool that you can use. So talking to the staff about, make eye contact with the person on the tour, provide a smile. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you today. All of a sudden, the walls come down with the client and they're like, wow. They can start envisioning their mom or their dad there, because look at how nice the staff is. So I think that that's really important, is acknowledge people on the tour, and just that small, act of kindness, smiling, the way that you're interacting with that older adult. People are watching you. People are 100% watching you. And this isn't an ACA survey where they're watching to see how many times you've sanitized in between medication, right? They don't care about that. I've already done that homework. I know that this place is going to be a good location. They're looking at the care, the smile, the compassion, the empathy that they feel with the staff and the residents that already live there. Little things like, a wipe across the hair when you're greeting the resident that's already there, right? How is interaction with the residents that are already there? And then how are you interacting with us on the tour? Are you engaging? Are you smiling? And again, I'm not looking to quiz any caretakers. I'm not here to drill them, but just that small showing the smile, showing some empathy or compassion goes a long way with the person who's touring, because we have choices, right? In Broward County, we have 267 choices. So, and you don't have a second shot to make a first impression. If it goes wrong during that first impression, they're not coming back. And it could be the smallest thing, but what I hear all the time is just the lack of acknowledgement on the tour. Just the staff not presenting in a way that would be engaging or that looks compassionate. And that is a lot of times just a smile, acknowledge a hello. Right?
Absolutely. And I think too, you covered that, but as someone who actually experienced that, when family members visit, they want to know who's taking responsibility. When something goes wrong, who is responsible? Of course, they know the owner is responsible, right. But if they can meet you and they can see you acknowledging that this is your show and you take responsibility for it, it could make or break the deal. And I've also come across going to different ALF settings to network, and I've come across some staff where, I'm not looking for a place for my mom. I don't want to interact with you anymore. Right. The energy is so thick. Yeah. It's like a smile. It's like the worst thing that could happen to them. And all you can think of is, if I was to leave my loved one here, when they do something wrong, which is only a matter of time before they do something, like one of them slapped me, for example, what will happen to my mom or my dad? Families think about all of that before they leave their loved one with you. And it's treasure. It's a treasure to have you here firsthand, because you're in between the family members and the ALFs in the different settings, and see what works and what don't work. So with all of that said, have you seen any, like memory care, for example? To be a memory care facility, all you have to do is some training, making sure you and your staff are trained. How have you seen the larger setup structure themselves versus the smaller ones when it comes to memory care? And I know the smaller setting is very appealing for memory care, but then sometimes they can be so afraid of having the memory care designation. Can you cover a little bit, give us a little bit of insights from your perspectives?
Sure. So I think one of the things that the larger communities have gotten right in regards to memory care is having different levels, right? So whether they have 2 floors of memory care and the bottom floor might be those who are more active, more pleasantly confused, maybe just emerging on their journey for dementia, and maybe the top floor is more advanced care. I think that that's what the larger communities have done right, is kind of separating those who need more care with those who need less, so that families can see there is a progression. We know that with dementia there's going to be a progression, but we don't want to look at the end and the worst case scenario, which is, you know, the biggest misconception about memory care. And you can see this in some of the larger ones, is they walk in and it's, the families will tell me, all I see is wheelchairs and heads down. That's what their perception is. So understanding that some people in their journey, unfortunately, that's where they're at. But to be able to showcase that there are people who have a higher level of activity, and accommodating those in memory care, as well as accommodating those who maybe need that higher level of care. That's what the larger ones, I think, are doing right. Is showing that they maybe have different groups, maybe different floors, and they're really accommodating the different levels of people on their dementia journey. The smaller homes, again, it goes back to the activity and cognitively, what are you doing? Because that's what the families want to know. What are you doing for my older adult? We know we can't stop dementia, but what are you doing to keep them cognitively alert, have them not just sitting in a bed or a recliner in front of a TV? So what strategies have you used in your community, in your small ALF, to help those with memory care? So that's number one, is the activities. Number two is always going to be safety. You talked about having an exterior gate, having an alarm system. What are you doing to ensure the safety of my family member who I need to leave here in your community? And touching on those points is really important, especially as a residential ALF owner. You do need to look around at the neighborhood, at the street, and realize if you are on a busy street, memory care might not be for you, right? Because as someone who's looking for best scenarios, if they're Johnson Street's a really busy street down here in South Broward. I have several ALFs that are on Johnson Street. I cannot in good faith consider that for one of my memory care clients, just because of the amount of traffic that the street gets. Now, in saying that, I do have a small residential ALF that has a alarm door, a gate to get to the property, and then a secondary gate. And the gate's quite high. So that's what we've put in place in order to mitigate the fact that we're on a busy street. So I think that you have to look at all of those aspects, but the two biggest ones are obviously safety, and then the second one is going to be, what are you doing for that older adult who has a diagnosis of dementia, Alzheimer's? What are you doing to help with slowing down that progression? We're in the world of AI and Google, because one of the biggest strains on residential ALFs is, I don't have the money. It doesn't take a lot to go on Google or AI, some cognitive games that you can play. You get yourself a cheap printer, you pull them out. There's things that you can do with your residents that show family members who are touring they're serious about memory care. And I think that that's a really important thing to do, is just to show that you are aware that they might be touring for memory issues, cognitive decline, and what are you doing for that family member?
Exactly. And then too, like, you can even ask the family members, what do mom and dad like to do? You know, is there a specific game that you play at home that she likes that we can play? And also, you talked about resources in the beginning. There are different professionals out there that will come and do activities with your seniors. And you mentioned AI as well. We had an episode about using headset that you put on. You'll find the episode here, but you put on the headsets and you can have the seniors do activities. If they can't get out of bed or they don't want to get out of bed, you can do certain activities with them with VR headsets, virtual realities. And I couldn't think of the name. And I mean, it was fascinating to hear how AI was being used, how our seniors can be entertained. One of the things we used to do that was also for cheap, YouTube. You know, you put on some activities on YouTube, we sit there, we do it. And of course, it will be different from person to person. One of my seniors that had dementia, she liked to fold towels for some reason. And, you know, for the day, that was her activity.
Right. And so I had a client recently, they must have been and it must have been, they were a head of a company. And so they were used to in the morning signing off on checks, right? So every morning that was they were going to sign off on checks. This woman was agitated on a daily basis. I need to sign the checks. I need to sign the check. And they couldn't figure out what she was talking about. In talking with the family, we realized this was part of her routine. She would come in the morning, sit at her desk, and sign the check. So what this smaller ALF did is got a checkbook for her. Here.
Yeah.
Every day, she had a little desk. She had a stack of checks, and she would sign those checks. And guess what? She was a different person every day. She did what she needed to do. Now she felt, okay, now I can get on with my day. But the agitation started in the morning because she needs to sign the check. And there was no checks for her to sign. So her whole day, she would have behaviors because she didn't sign the checks in the morning. By bringing those checks in, right? Just easy, print out some checks. Every morning there's a stack for her to sign, and now she's ready for her day. So it's important to know what did this person do for a living and what might make them feel better. One of my other, it's a larger community, they just shared a story with me that the nightly routine for this woman would be to go and check on her car, make sure her car was there. Now she's no longer driving and she doesn't have a car in the parking lot, but right after dinner she goes to the administrator on duty and says, time to go to the car. So they walk out to the car, make sure it's locked. Okay, your car is locked, you're good, let's go back inside, we're ready for bed. So she was getting agitated because she couldn't do this one activity. It just took a simple thing. Walk out, okay, the car's locked, now we can go in. Now the behavior is subsided and she feels at peace. So active listening to your clients, trying to figure out what is that they're missing that's causing the agitation, and then doing something creative to go ahead and help them through this journey. I think that they deserve that, they earn that, and trying to figure that little puzzle out is something that any ALF owner can do to make quality of life better for those memory care residents.
Absolutely. And I feel like even the smaller setting have an edge because you only have so many seniors to deal with. And if you just go a little extra mile and treat the seniors how you would want to be treated when you get to that age, you will find every single person like to do something differently, and you have the capability to do those things. And even when it comes to networking with the larger setting, when I manage a smaller setting, I also network with a larger setting because I also understood at some point a senior will not meet their ADL levels, and then they need a smaller setting to collaborate with them or someone like you so that the senior will find a place that they will be more welcome. Any advice for the smaller setting when it comes to relationship with the larger?
I think that is very, very important. There sometimes can become a time where a larger setting is no longer appropriate, right? Because you have to understand in the larger setting, and this is something I explain to family members all the time, is you have your own autonomy. You are in the room, your door is shut, and yes, they have well checks and you're going to be checked on in the larger communities for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but what if you need more checks? What if you need more encouragement to eat? What if you need more assistance than what is offered, right? Because there are staffing, and I don't want to speak for the larger communities and the time that they've allocated per resident, but it is going to be far less than the smaller ALFs. So I think that working and marketing with those larger ALFs to create a relationship where you guys work together. They might have a resident in their building that really would thrive in a smaller care home. And by realizing that the larger communities are not your enemy, right? They're not.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
They're actually your friend. Remember Fabiola from the conference?
Yes.
I met her at a larger setting, and
Right.
she was the administrator.
They are your friends, and there's some great administrators that can recognize that the residents that they have in their larger setting, it's no longer appropriate. They do need more care. And that's the biggest selling point, if you would, for the smaller care homes, is that at a minimum, during the day, you're going to have 2 caretakers to at max 6 residents. Where in the larger,
And that's huge.
Right. It's tremendously huge. The time that a caretaker can spend with the resident is 10 times that than the larger ones. So by marketing and becoming friendly and saying, listen, if you have a resident that's really, really suffering, that you see isn't as social as they should be, really requires more care, maybe they've gone into the hospital multiple times for UTIs, by developing a relationship with that administrator, even with that sales director, even with the nurse, the director of nursing out there, to indicate indicate which ones might need it. We don't want, our whole goal, whether it's a larger or a smaller facility, is we want to avoid nursing homes. And that's what every family wants to avoid. The smaller care homes are that piece of the puzzle that we need to avoid nursing homes, right? We can provide the care. You can try as much as possible to monitor the water intake, to prevent the reoccurring readmissions to hospitals because of things that are preventable as much as possible. So by becoming friendly with the larger ALFs, getting to know them, it's very, very beneficial for your business and to keep your beds full.
Absolutely. I love that. And then with age in place policies, hospice, you mentioned hospice earlier. So Nickie just gave us, a roadmap from her perspective. If you can have activities, keep your home nicely structured, declutter. It's good for fire safety rules and regulations anyway. And make sure you have a house that is beautiful, well lit, nice lighting, and the owner do the tour, or if you absolutely cannot do it, if you have a very friendly staff who is people friendly, who have good people skills, train them on how to do a tour. There is a way to do a tour as the operator, and not just everyone is able to do a tour. For example, bringing on your people skills, having a gift. When I used to do tours at my senior living, I used to have gifts. If it was hot outside, I would have a bottle of water that is nice and cold, depending on the day, of a handwritten note. All of these things, making sure that when this person comes into my ALF, they feel at home. Could you imagine they come from my ALF and they go tour somewhere else where it's illegal to smile?
Right, yeah. Or you're given like this on the tour where they're just walking room to room and the hand's just going out, but there's no explanation. I think it's very important. Like you mentioned at the end of every tour, here's my business card. If you have any questions that Nickie can't answer, whoever the person might be with, or if they're just touring on their own, if you have any questions here, please reach out to me personally. I'd love to be able to clear up any confusion. So it's important, like you said, make yourself accountable. As the owner, your people aren't going to just be pounding on your door without you doing the marketing and doing the effort. And it's your reputation that's going to be what sustains you through those harder times. It's the reputation and the person that you are and the care that you give. So it's important that if you're slow, that you are out there marketing, that you're letting people know that you're available, and then welcoming as far as senior advisors, placement agents, whatever you want to call us. If you meet us at a FALA, if you meet us at a BCOA, if you meet us out in the wild, right? Invite us over to tour your home.
Yes.
We want to see it.
Absolutely.
Invite us over. Before you open, invite us over so that we can see how you're different, what you have to offer. Yeah.
I love that. And those things goes a long way. And even after, you've toured the place, have a follow-up. There are CRMs, different ones that you can use, that you can plug in and be able to follow up with Miss Nickie at least every holidays. You can say happy holidays from so-and-so assisted living. Now she remembers touring your place, and you stay up to mind. Is there anything else you would like to share with my audience?
No, I think the biggest takeaway, especially for the residential ALFs, is to distinguish yourself from others. This is a business, but at the end of the day, you are taking care of vulnerable adults, and leading with compassion, empathy, and care is what is reflected when we're out there looking at your community as opposed to others. Because as you mentioned before, Carlene, when I'm doing tours, I'm not here's one person and we're not going anywhere else. We're normally touring 3 to 4 places in a day. So you need to stand out. So as you mentioned, having a well-lit place, smiles, friendly, and just showing us that your location is going to provide the compassion, the care, and the personalized care that what we're seeking. That's why we're going to a residential ALF, because care is usually at the forefront of what's needed for the loved one, because they weren't getting it, whether that be from a larger ALF or being discharged from a hospital. We know that this case is going to be unique and they need a personal touch that only the smaller ALFs can really provide.
And I hope you heard that. The personal touch that only the smaller setting can provide. And that is key. If you can take all the other tips and add all of that to it, you are sitting on gold. I would like to call call it. And one last question I would like to ask, are you seeing that referral sources changing? What are some of the trends that you've noticed from what you do as a senior care specialist or placement specialist?
Sure. So referral sources, I mean, the biggest referral sources are always going to be our hospitals and our rehab centers, right? We get a lot there, but it's just in the community itself. So if you're an ALF owner, that's what you are going to be doing 24/7. So standing in line at the grocery store, just being that good person. I'm assuming that you're in the industry because you're a caring and compassionate person. So showcasing that where you go is really important. One of the biggest referral sources I currently have right now is my past client, because they know that I helped their mother or father into a place, and they're out there in the wild, right? And so they're advocating for me. So if you have a standout residential ALF and you've helped mom or dad, family member move in, that person is now another arm of your marketing team. So I think that just having that large referral base where you do what's right, that person's going to remember it and they're going to be singing your praises. So currently now, for someone like myself, 60% of all my referrals are past clients. So clients that are referring me to new people, clients that are referring me to other family members. That is a huge base as far as my marketing goes. And then obviously social media. So getting on to the different group, getting on to the different local community pages and kind of monitoring those at night. Again, it's a free thing you can do for marketing. I'm not saying take out ads, but if someone's asking on Cooper City Buzz website, hey, I'm looking for a residential ALF, my mom needs more care, get on there. Hi, I own ABC Residential ALF. I'd love to have you come tour with us, right? So getting your name out there. And those are all free things that you can do. So I think taking advantage of the resources that are out there that aren't going to cost you a fortune, because starting out, money is limited, but word of mouth goes a long way. And then using social media, it's, I tell people, you have to be on 24/7. So at night, instead of aimlessly going through TikToks or playing a little video game, you should be on those Facebook groups. You should be on the dementia support groups and adding real value to those groups, but then also when appropriate, letting them know, hey, I'm the owner of an ALF. If you have any questions, I'd love to be able to answer it, even if it doesn't pertain to you getting the resident. So meaning they might have a question that you're familiar with. Hey, I'd love to be able to answer that question for you. Maybe they might not even be in the same city as you. Becoming an expert as yourself, becoming an expert in the industry, as an owner of a residential ALF, you are the expert. Advocate for yourself and market yourself as such. That's what I would recommend.
I love that so much. So basically, she just said, if you have an ALF in Port St. Lucie, you should be in all of those St. Lucie groups, for example. Somehow my brain always goes to Port St. Lucie.
Okay.
I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know why I live in Broward County. Where can my audience find you?
So I am in Broward and Miami-Dade. If you're local, if you just put in CarePatrol and your zip code, you're going to reach me. Like I said, we are nationwide, but personally, if you want to reach out to me, my private cell is 954-380-8780. My email, reach out to me anytime at N, and then my last name, DiFede, DIFEDE, at carepatrol.com. I am available. Most people know me, know I work 24/7.
Yes, you do.
I finally learned, Carlene, how to set my emails to go out next morning at 8 a.m. I don't seem like that crazy person who's working at 2 in the morning, but emergencies and unexpected events are not timed. They're not an 8 to 5. Yeah. So I make myself available when my families need me. And I think that, it's an important lesson to learn for everyone. This is not a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 job. We are working with emergency situations, and so being available is really important. So in saying that, message me, email me, contact me. I'd love to be able, if you're in either county, to tour your home if I haven't already. We are starting an initiative. We started it in January where we are revisiting every single privately owned ALF in Broward County. So if maybe we passed you up 2 years ago because you didn't meet our criteria for care and violation history, we're going to go back out there, question you on it, and hopefully you have a new admin or you're able to address that issue. But we would like to give everyone a second chance and have a second set of eyes on all my privately owned ALFs. So we're out there we started in Miami and we're doing Broward County this year. So either myself or John Lanton, my business partner, we should be seeing you soon because we're out there and we're in the field when we're not dealing with clients.
Yes. And people like, what care violations? She means when you have violations from ACA, they are public records. That's why we tell you to keep your checklists, binders, all of these things in place. Nickie, I admire you. I love how you serve and you do it with such heart and it shows. Please reach out to Nickie. Let her know what was your big aha moment from this episode and send her some love, okay? And she's good people. With all of that said, if you found this episode valuable, please consider like, subscribe, and share it with someone that will find it valuable. Check the link in the descriptions on how you can work with us. Nickie's information will also be on there. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.